All right, so I'll go to get started. Greetings, everyone. Welcome. We are currently beginning the Education Commission regular meeting, June 30th at 6 p.m. Call to order, please.
Yes. Chair David Govea.
Present.
Vice Chair Angel Zobo Rodriguez.
Present.
Commissioner Suzanne N. Yemes. Currently not here. Commissioner Nicole Moore.
Present.
Commissioner Olivia Robledo.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So the next we have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think Cynthia, you have the flag.
Right there.
I like that little shift right there. All right, so right hand of your heart. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you all so much for participating in that. Next up, we have the agenda. I'm not sure if all of our guests have it as well, but it's a pretty hefty agenda. Quick question, Cynthia. I did notice that we had an item I think that we discussed before that's not on there regarding the chair and vice chair selection. Is that an oversight, or is that something that we want to push towards next?
That was an oversight. We can add it. It is on the city code. However, we can bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, we'll just do that then. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the
I'll
agenda.
second that.
Moved by Olivia, second by Angel. All right, and since we're doing this teleconference, I believe we all need to voice vote individually. Roll call, correct?
Yes. Commissioner, ready? Commissioner Olivia Robledo.
Present.
For the
Yes,
approval of the agenda.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nicole Moore.
Yes.
Commissioner Suzanne N. Yemes, currently not here. Vice Chair Angel Zobo Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Chair David Govea.
Yes. Great, so the agenda has been approved. So now we have public statements. Is there any member of the public that would like to make a statement before we go on to our agendized items? Okay, I think most people here are agendized, so.
Yeah, and we also did not receive written public comment to the city clerk at SF City email.
Okay, thank you for that. So now we're moving forward to our commission matters. Commission matter number 1 is a presentation regarding the San Fernando Citywide Parking Management Master Plan from Tim Howe, as well as a few guests from the KOA Corporation, Catherine Padilla and Associates, as well as JR Parking Consultants. So Tim, thank you so much for coming and being willing to share kind of what the master plan is. I know this has been a somewhat contentious issue at times in regards to schooling, parking, traffic. So to discuss the master plan that you guys are working on is very helpful for us to disseminate some of this info to our schools. So thank you for being here and willing to share that.
Thank you so much, Chair Govea and commissioners. I do want to tip my hat to Commissioner Moore. We earlier this month brought this item first to the Transportation and Safety Commission. That was really our first public interaction about the project for obvious reasons given the topic. And she recommended coming before this group as well, and thus we're here and hoping to get as much feedback as possible from you, and that really is the intent. So in a second, and just a few moments, I'm going to pass this over to our incredible project team, Brian from KOA, Kathy from Catherine Padilla Associates, Janice from Janice Road Consultants. But just to give a bit of background on how we got here. So City of San Fernando, like almost every jurisdiction, certainly in California, has its parking concerns and challenges. And those challenges are different depending on where in the city you're talking about. There are different challenges in the residential neighborhoods that need a different solution than challenges, say, in the central business district. So knowing that when I landed here a couple years ago with the city, this was an area that we were really trying to look for an opportunity to address. And a grant opportunity came up through SCAG, the Regional Planning Organization for Southern California. We applied and we were awarded that grant opportunity. What it enabled us to do was go through a process of bringing on a consultant team that would develop a master plan and really look at addressing parking, parking issues and parking solutions. So we went through a request for proposals process, interviewed firms, and from that, the top firm was selected, led by KOA and the project team that you have here in front of you. So this project is really data-driven, and they're going to walk through what the project entails, the timeline for it, and really what we hope to achieve coming out of it. And I just want to emphasize that this is an opportunity, and it's not the only opportunity, but it's a key opportunity to get your feedback. And so we're looking for, there's no parking question or concern too small or too big or too location specific. We'll take any and all of the feedback. Over the last month now, we've been going to a number of different community groups. I mentioned Transportation and Safety Commission. We've gone to the Neighborhood Watch Group. We've gone to the Business Watch Group. We're now in front of you. And in July, we're going to be continuing on to some other community groups. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And everyone hearing me okay? Okay, good. And thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for having us tonight. So I want to give you an overview of what we're doing under this and explain what a parking study is, what we're going to be looking at, how we're collecting data, and then get your input on issues that you see as a resident, as a commissioner, representing your city, but also just as a resident. We'll go through it. And we also want some input from you on potential stakeholders that we can include, because we have stakeholder meetings coming up as the next phase of our outreach. So we'll be asking you that at the end. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, could I get enabled as a screen sharer, as a participant? There we go. 1 second. Okay. You should see a title slide there, if that worked right. So we've started to brand the project as some of our first steps. Catherine's been working on this to show the neighborhood feel of San Fernando, the vibrant downtown residential area, just a great place to be, good quality of life, and that's kind of some of the goals that we're looking at to help the city with as we go through the parking study. What I'm going to do first here is give you an overview of who we are. So I work with KOA. We're in Monterey Park. We're planners and engineers. I'm a transportation planner with the firm. The KOA's role in the project is project management, but also parking data analysis, and looking at solutions, feeding the solutions into the team so we can look at potential solutions. And we have design expertise to help with geometric issues and different things, roadway issues and things like that as we go through the project. So those are our strengths on the project. JR Parking Consultants, you were introduced to Janice earlier. She's helping us with her expertise on parking management, which could be anything from time limits to who can park where, those kind of things, or limiting parking during certain hours, overnight parking, and pricing as well. There are some metered spaces in the city around the Civic Center, the courthouse, and the courthouse parking lot is a pay parking lot. That could be expanded as part of the overall parking management. It doesn't mean it has to be, but those are just some of the tools that we're going to be looking into. But we want to do the right thing, so we're not assuming that anything is going to happen in a certain way. We're going to develop this as we go, since we've just started. Catherine Padilla and Associates, you were introduced to Catherine, and I believe Thelma is here as well. Their group is doing business group outreach, so we can focus on the downtown area, the commercial area, other commercial corridors, and doing public outreach to the general public at large, making sure all the communication is done at a uniform level, and the project information is consistent, because that's important. We're collecting a lot of data as part of this project through the whole city. Every city street will have data collected. So we have a firm that's been around for years and years that does this and can provide the staffing to do those parking surveys that we need. Now I'll get into a little more detail on what that means. So in terms of just experience, I'll go through this quickly just so you get an overview of what we've done in the past. We've done KOA and KPA and JR parking. We've done a lot of parking studies for different jurisdictions, most recently downtown Long Beach, Seal Beach, El Segundo, and Tustin. We did a couple of cities in Tustin in their Old Town area and the adjacent residential areas. All of these are studies where we've done commercial areas with adjacent residential. Sometimes those have special issues. I know we'll get into others as we go through the issues, but that's one characteristic of those studies that we have a lot of experience in. We're going to be doing a lot of mapping throughout, and what we hope to do is do an online GIS tool. We have that capability, we just need to set it up. And what we can do in project meetings is have, when we get to comments and going through issues, be able to map those issues on a map of our data and show issues as we go, and we can append photographs to that. And then the larger hope is to make that available through a website for the project, so that public can comment and provide their comments and upload photos of issues that they see. So we're gonna be doing that. So overall, we're all experienced as a team: planning, management, pricing, public outreach. We understand local neighborhood issues well. One, because we're all residents of urban areas, but also we've done outreach and planning for San Fernando for the East San Fernando Valley Light Rail project that you probably heard a lot about, with one of the potential stations near the Civic Center area, and then another one up at the Silmar San Fernando Metrolink station to the north. But we've done a lot of planning and outreach in the community, most recently doing a first last mile plan for those station sites to look at pedestrian routes, bicycle routes, ways to access the stations. And that was very successful in terms of outreach and turnout. So in terms of the project goals, what we're doing tonight, engaging community members and forming stakeholder groups, and then getting down to problem solving. We're going to work together with city stakeholders, with the public, to come up with the best solutions for San Fernando. The goals of the study also include stimulating local economies. A commercial district and its parking kind of has to work as a system. If it's not working well, then that can affect the efficiency and how well things work, whether people want to shop in an area, how employee parking works. All of that has to work as a system. So there's special kind of recognition given to the commercial districts in the study, but also it's all the residential neighborhoods as well, and the industrial areas within San Fernando. The San Fernando corridor specific plan, the two major corridors in the city, were looked at a couple years back for land use, looking at economics issues. So we're going to bring a lot of that into this study and reference that a lot, because that's a valuable plan that was adopted by the city, and it has a lot of goals and aspirations that everyone in the city has worked on. We want to capture position the city to capture the full benefits of what we call transit-oriented development, TOD, it's sometimes called. With the coming of the Metro project, it brings a lot of benefits in terms of the ability to get on transit rather than parking a car or driving a car to certain areas of the city. But it also potentially creates some new parking management demands, because if those parking lots do not operate properly as park and rides, they can overflow demand into other areas. So it has kind of a two-edged issue that we'll be looking at. But we wanted this to be a focus study in terms of neighborhoods, commercial districts, but also looking at holistic parking solutions. We also know that if you do a solution in a certain area, it could affect adjacent streets, adjacent residential areas. So we want to be cognizant of that it's holistic solutions we're looking for to allow the city's parking areas to operate as a system. So how we're going to do this? We're going to collect data for 2 weekday periods, 2 Saturday periods. We may break up the Saturday into a Sunday and a Saturday, because we've heard of special issues on Sundays with church services, events, and other nearby uses kind of combining activity on Sundays. So we may break that up, but that's the plan. So we're basically gonna get snapshots of those 4 time periods, and that'll feed data into our study. But we're including all the on-street parking segments in the city. It's basically all those parallel parking. You park by the curb on the street, the diagonal spaces downtown and in the civic center, all the public parking lots. And we're including commercial parking lots that are on major corridors, because we want to see if a commercial parking lot has too much demand, it's spilling into the street. At times we want to recognize that and see what can be done there. But we're going to look at trends, patterns, conglomerate into neighborhoods, districts, to see how those are operating as a whole, and then getting into management pricing recommendations that could be solutions to some of the issues that have been discovered during the study. Overall, we're going to do 2 community workshops. We'll do one in the coming month or so, as kind of an initial to get the stakeholders involved and get them up to speed on the project and get input into the next steps on the project. And then we'll have some later on in terms of stakeholder meetings after we have 1 community workshop with the public to kind of do the same thing, but do that on a larger level, show a presentation and get into comments and working in groups and marking up maps, getting into the online mapping. So that's the outreach process. But in the end, it'll be the parking management plan document. There'll be presentations of the Transportation Safety Commission and the City Council, draft and final forms. At the end of that, I'll show you here our project study area, which is basically the whole city. So that's the easy part. These are all the on-street segments in the city. We've drawn a little bit extra at the south end, but it'll be within the city. And then those other parking lots that I've mentioned in these major commercial corridors, those are all shown in dots, points on this map, and we'll be including those. We've already done the inventory of those locations, so we're ready to do that. And we'll talk about the timing of this, because with COVID-19 restrictions, commercial activity is not at a good level where we're seeing all the issues that we want to see in the data. Although residential, everyone's mostly at home, although things are opening up. People are mostly home, so the residential demand is very strong, but commercial demand is not quite there yet. So we'll talk about the timing of our data collection. So our current tentative schedule, the parking data collection was going to be in spring or early summer. We would have been kind of in the midst of it now and wrapping that up and going through our data, but we're gonna see what fall brings and see how much activity commercial areas have, and see if it's a viable time. We know we won't be at 100% this year probably in terms of demand, but we want to be close. So we'll make a judgment call with the city over the summer and do some monitoring ourselves to see how things look. Getting toward the end of the year, getting into special district requirements and other parking regulations, looking at pricing and management issues as we go toward January, and then get to the draft and final documents toward the first, second quarters of next year, getting into the spring months. Schedule detail, yeah, so we'll update the schedule details after we have some of the stakeholder outreach. And then I believe we're going into outreach. Catherine will present these and go into our questions at the end.
I just want to take a moment and acknowledge Thelma's great work. She's a graphic designer. She's the senior project manager with us. And she's been involved with the Metro East San Fernando Valley study since 2011. So she's very familiar with the city of San Fernando. So I think most of you know, we started with going out and talking to people, going out to the commissions, Neighborhood Watch, Business Watch, and now here we are at the Education Commission meeting. And the reason we're doing this is, first of all, to introduce the study and make sure that everyone has this correct information about the study. And that starts us off on the right foot, where we all have shared understanding of what the goals are. Then what we're working towards now is holding stakeholder interviews. That means we are having small group discussions with, as Brian described, the map to kind of review with people where the key issues are. And it's at every commission meeting, every neighborhood watch, we've heard a lot of very valuable information. We've been compiling that. And hopefully in this presentation as well, we'll hear some of your thoughts and comments. But in the stakeholder interview for an hour and a half, we'll be able to delve more deeply into business issues or issues, parking issues in commercial districts, and then in residential districts. So we're here to let you know about that and to invite your participation. We'll be holding a community meeting on October 20th. That means that we'll be able at that time to learn and compile the information from both the quantitative information that Brian's group is gathering and Janice, and then we'll be able to compile the qualitative information, the thoughts, the issues, the values from the public stakeholder interviews. And then on the next page, we'll continue with our outreach description. So once we compile the information from the community meetings, then we go back out to the stakeholder group. This is a program that's intended to be intentional. It's methodical. That means that we compile information, we go out to the public, a broad picture of what we learned, and then we bring it back to the stakeholder group so you can visualize sort of a continuous feedback loop. Is this correct? Is this what we heard? We'll be able to discuss some findings from the community meeting. We'll be able to discuss preliminary solutions. And then after that, we'll conduct an online survey. And that's where we're going to need your help in making sure that survey is widely distributed and a lot of people are able to provide their feedback. And then from that, we can start developing solutions. And then based on that, we'll have another round of meetings like this, kind of going out to the commissions. And then we'll have a community meeting where we can kind of present sort of a wrap up of what we learned and what the report's starting to look like and what the plan, how the plan's materializing. So it should be pretty firmed up by then. So we're here for specific reasons. We'd like to answer any questions for you related to the technical approach or the overall process. What is the expected outcome, for example, any kind of community outreach questions, we're happy to answer that. And then we have a call to action on your part. We'd like your help as well. But let's begin with the questions, please.
Any of the commissioners want to start off with any questions for the group? We'll start with Susan. Do you have any questions?
David, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, good. I'm lying. I'm sorry. And thank you, Cynthia, for getting me on. No, I don't have any questions. I jumped in. I believe it's Brian when he had almost finished speaking. So I'll listen to what you have to say so that way I can try to catch up to everybody.
Okay, great. Olivia, do you have any questions?
Yes. So as you do the observations of traffic and so forth, now that schools, I don't know what's happening with the schools in August, or even the churches, but how are you factoring in the fact that people are not using the parking, or there isn't as much traffic or moving around in the city, or people coming into the city for special events and so forth? I live near the aquatic park, and so during the year that swimming facility is used by the county. So how are you, adjusting to what's going on with COVID and the
Right. So yeah, that's something we have to evaluate, because if schools are going to likely be closed, I assume maybe San Fernando School District has, or LA Unified has said that they won't open in fall. I can't recall. So yeah, having the schools out is going to be a big issue. Churches that are still doing a lot of online services and not a lot of events, that will be an issue for our parking data. But just, yeah, the general activity in the downtown area and the commercial corridors as well, and people working from home, or people have lost jobs and there's just not that economic activity in some of the businesses. We're gonna need to evaluate how that's looking in terms of parking demand. Ideally, we'd want all those things open, but we're gonna have to evaluate that. We don't want to just kind of guess and factor up and see what could have been there. So it's going to be something we're going to have to consider if it's worth going forward with the data collection with a lot of those closed. In terms of the commercial area, we know a lot of people are doing takeout at restaurants, but restaurants have opened a bit for seating, but they're still not at capacity. And a lot of business services are either starting to open or they're still closed. So we have to kind of look at that whole system and decide when we're going to do the parking data collection. But if something is not active and we decide to go forward, it's going to be just kind of part of the picture that we're looking at. And then the rest will be kind of the issues that you recall when things were a little more normal. And we'll be incorporating those into the study.
Right, and I was even thinking of the business district downtown on San Fernando Road. There are a lot of bridal shops, or places where people go to purchase things for weddings or quinceañeras. Well, if people are not having their weddings in the same way, or the quinceañeras, those businesses will also not be at capacity. So in many ways, and those are people that come from out of town. It's not people in town that necessarily use those services.
Right. Yeah, because ideally the parking study is going to show those four, at least in terms of the data, and we're having a lot of other analysis going on and ideas, but the parking data that we're looking at is going to be snapshots of like a weekday afternoon, or maybe at lunchtime, a weekday evening, when businesses are still open, but people have come home. And then those 2 weekend times, which could be the same, it could be Saturday or Sunday. But if the kind of the interplay is not there between commercial demand, the residential demand, the school demand, it's just not showing those issues, but we still might capture in some areas, but not others. So it's going to have to be a judgment call that we make.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Commissioner Moore.
Hi, so I had wanted to explain a little bit. Thank you, Tim, for explaining why I had asked to bring this before our commission, or at least even if it wasn't a whole presentation to the commission. But I feel that because of the situation that Commissioner Robledo brought up, that it's very important that a lot of weight is going to need to be placed on those stakeholder interviews. Because of the fact that I just don't think that if we stick to this timeline, unless you were to move the project a full year forward, I just don't think we're going to be seeing, any sort of semblance of what normal activity is like. But I think it's very important that those stakeholder interviews include our school staff, especially in the downtown area, in Morningside Elementary, San Fernando Middle School. And so I'm hoping that there's something that we as a commission can do to get, you in touch with the right stakeholders, because I think that they're going to have more information about what traffic needs actually look like, and possibly even video feed perhaps that they could give you of what things were like in prior years.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, Nikki, could you repeat that? What was the last? By the way, we're taking notes. Almost taking notes as we talk. But I didn't get your last comment. You mentioned the schools, and then you mentioned one more.
Some of the schools, I know most of the schools have cameras.
Mhm.
So I was thinking that some of the schools may be able to provide you with video feed of a typical day, perhaps from earlier this year, like in February. So that you get more of a feeling of what typical is like, because it just doesn't seem like on this timeline that we're going to be able to get as a typical view. So, but they might be able to provide you video feed of what that looks like.
Okay, sure. That's something to research.
Thank you. Next, Vice Chair Sobel Rodriguez.
Thank you. I actually did watch the Transportation Commission meeting, and Commissioner Moore, you nailed it. You completely nailed it. It has to be a Saturday and a Sunday. There's way too much traffic, specifically very close to City Hall, that because parking is free on Sundays, the parking lot near the churches spill out. They use city parking lots, they use city employee parking lots, which nobody has a problem with because it's Sunday, but in terms of traffic in and out, or the church park, or the courthouse parking lots, I'm seeing families using the courthouse parking lots now as playgrounds. And when the courthouses eventually go back, that's going to be a big concern. Right now, there is nothing that is normal about anything at any school. We could be overstating how bad it is in our neighborhood. I live on one of the wider streets, and there's no parking in the evenings. I can't say the last time I saw the spot in front of my house. In fact, we've joked at 10 o'clock at night, if someone pulls out, we should just go park in front of our house just to say we can. We don't need to. We have a very long driveway, but it's now gotten to the point where we can't jockey the cars to get the two cars out of the single car driveway length. We have to go all the way around the block because there's nowhere to park. I understand that there's no requirement for parking, but now people are parking in front of the fire hydrant and squeezing, and we have one of the really old driveways that's incredibly narrow. And I'm always afraid that when we back out that we're going to tip cars on either side, including in front of a fire hydrant. I don't know how many, and we're on the side of the city that's supposedly less dense. I know that there's plenty of people on the other side that when the shutdown started, were worried because they had nowhere to park ever. And that was when we loosened the restrictions on ticketing. Until the students go back, until the courthouse is back, until people are back doing their daily runs, I am not convinced that this is a viable count in any way. I don't know if it can go all the way down to where people enter the city from the 118 freeway, but we back up all the way on the completely on the 118 to the point where there's generally accidents either at San Fernando Road or Glen Oaks, and a lot of those people are trying to get into the city. So that's not parking, that's more traffic. But since they built that shopping center down there, it creates a tremendous backup on the freeway, and we tend to get off and come through all the way through town to avoid getting backed up off the 118. My only other concern is when I see parking and charging. I know that the businesses are doing the best they can right now in really difficult circumstances. And I know that we used to charge for parking behind City Hall, and thankfully we removed all those meters. I know that that is the way the world goes, that if we're going to end up with some projects in town, there will be paid for parking. But the reality is that people are not going to be super comfortable taking public transportation until there's actually a vaccine. So the reality is that, if it's 110 degrees, I would love to walk 3 blocks to go pick up my meal, but I'm not going to. I'm going to probably drive. So, you know, we're lucky that it is only a few blocks away and we know when to go and we know where all the extra parking is. But in terms of other businesses, or we're talking about possibly using parking spaces for restaurant table space outside to enhance dining,
Right.
those are parking spaces. So if we do that, I'm not going to sit next to traffic. The interesting idea, it's not anything. I will just carry
Right.
everything home and I will eat here. You know, I have room here. There are other people that'll be very happy to be outside. I have a college-age daughter that wants to be out of here so badly. She might be one of the people that wants to sit at a table next to traffic. But if we're taking away parking spaces, those are people that want to come to the city. So I love the idea of actually having data behind what we all think, because sometimes we're so entrenched in what we believe. In terms of the schools, Commissioner Moore suggested looking at Morningside and San Fernando Middle, but we have had to work with Vista del Valle, and we've had to work with Cesar Chavez Learning Academies, because LAUSD has put schools in communities where schools did not fit. So when we're looking at stakeholders or interviews, those are definitely people that we need to talk to, because they are trying to find ways to get people in and out, but there's also people trying to stop and let their kids out. So that,
yeah, that's definitely another vote for doing Saturday and Sunday. So that's been a trend that we need to acknowledge and adjust to. So in terms of the residential demand obviously has been the highest ever, with everyone being at home. So residential demand is almost higher than what is typical. But yeah, it's the commercial that we need to figure out if it's at an adequate level to do the surveying. So yeah, the parking charging would never be implemented unless there's agreement and consensus, businesses, residents, that it's a good thing to do. It would only work if there's more businesses coming to downtown, that it makes sense to kind of save that premium parking and have people park farther out without causing impacts on local neighborhoods. So that all those issues kind of have to be looked at, but we're not assuming that we're going to increase parking charges or expand that. And if the city's done it in the past and rescinded it, then we need to be sensitive to that and not assume that that's something that you want to do right away. And we need to be sensitive to the local businesses and not price people out of shopping downtown or in any of the commercial corridors. So we understand that. In terms of the traffic from the 118 coming into the city, so we're not going to be looking at traffic patterns, but we're looking at the parking supply. So but if there's a lot of activity going on and people are clogging up parking spots toward the south end of the city due to that traffic for whatever reason, then it would be acknowledged in the study. But we are focusing just inside the city limits on the on-street and parking lot supply. So it is limited in that regard.
okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I have a couple of follow-up questions. I would like to know if you think the approach is to talk to the principals at each of the schools and to recruit them to participate in a stakeholder interview, or if there's any kind of help that you can give us in terms of who to contact.
I am pretty confident that the principals would definitely like to be involved.
Okay.
Cesar Chavez Learning Academies is actually 4 principals. It's one building, 4 schools. So there's 4 starts and 4 stop times, 4 different calendars and 4 of everything. So if you guys wanted to make one person a point person, that's a possibility. Or you might decide that you want all 4 sets of feedback.
Okay.
To answer your question as well, so I actually spoke with the administrator for San Fernando Middle School, and one of her bigger issues that she brought up about just kind of frustrations that she's having was in regards to drop-off parking in the morning, because I guess the city had short-term parking there, and then they paved over and it was a red, and there were police officers that were ticketing some of the parents But she did share that, and I think this is going to be your person to talk to. So I think administrators, principal, vice principal would be the best people to reach out to.
And that was actually the same issue that you brought up about the red curb was brought up at a transportation meeting about 3-4 months ago as well. I might
Was it
be
the administrator for San Fran in the Middle?
Yeah, well, no, not the administrator, but it was a public comment.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think the principals will be the best point people, and we have contact information for all the principals that I'm sure we can share. Or if you, if we have relationships, I'm more than willing to kind of connect you guys.
And then one more question for Angel. You were talking about the street that you lived on, and it's a little early. It's good for us to get specific. Would you let us know what street that is? We'll add it to our notes.
I'm near 4th and Griswold.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm near the pool as well. I'm near between the pool and the courthouse.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. I want to share, that the commission brought up some really amazing points. I think bringing administrators involved, I think you guys mentioned October of this year, we're going to be having community stakeholder input. I think definitely bringing them involved around that time can be very helpful. To answer Brian's question in regards to school starting this next year, LAUSD is still debating on what to do, whether it's going to be virtual, online. There has been a lot of talks about hybrid learning. So basically almost creating like an A/B track system where half the students go one week and half the students go the other week. So if you are collecting data around that time, just something to consider that you're looking at about half capacity, maybe even less, because I'm sure there's some parents that just don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school during the pandemic. That's something to consider. And then just from a personal kind of, individual resident, I live close to the station that's going to be placed on Hubbard, the San Fernando Somar station. And I'm very excited just because I'm a big proponent of public transportation. I've worked on the campaign for Measure M because I wanted to see that line come through, and I'm so happy that we have some people who worked on that campaign as well. But I also lived in North Hollywood, and I used to work at the neighborhood council there. And one of the things that we were really frustrated with is that we were promised adequate parking for the Red Line station, and it was not delivered. So that parking lot just became overflowed constantly. Eventually they moved to some kind of pay-based system. But we just know a lot of the residents in the surrounding community were extremely frustrated because that was the point, the point place that pretty much the entire San Fernando Valley went if they wanted to connect to the heavy rail in the city or the county of Los Angeles. So I see the LHR that we're getting potentially being that source, being that it can connect Santa Clarita Valley's Antelope Valley with that train. So I would just advocate for as much parking as possible on either station, either the one within the city limits or the one in Somar, San Fernando, and then also security in relation to that, because there were, lots of crime that comes up when you have cars parked there for extended period of time. So just that's an area that I know a lot of potential Metro riders are concerned about. So I don't know that relates to parking, but I know they do breaking cars and things like that.
Makes sense. Okay, good. Thank you.
Great. So I think the next part is how can we help? How are you guys envisioning support from the Education Commission?
Well, first of all, we'd like you to let the community know the parking study is underway, and then to promote accurate information, community participation. We'd also like to ask you if you have stakeholders that you think we should interview. And again, the stakeholder groups will be held around the end of July, I think, towards the end of July, last week in July. And those are smaller conversations. We're looking for probably 12 to 15 max participants. So just letting you know, if you have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, we'd love to hear it. Any suggestions? We'll follow up on the ones that have already been discussed. And we want to make sure, and feel free to contact me. It's kpadilla@katherinepadilla.com. And we're hoping by Tuesday, July 7th. All right. Oh, my dog. Sorry.
Great. So I believe, is there any other statements, comments, or things for our Parking Solutions team? No. So on behalf of the Education Commission, I just want to thank all of you guys for coming. Very important work that you're all doing. You're working here with our city and some of you for an extended period of time. And we will reach out to any potential stakeholders, and Kathy will reach out to you if there's some people who we think might benefit from being part of the study group. And we'll make sure to spread the word in relation to this is happening and kind of voice or share your concerns. So thank you guys for being here and sharing this with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all, commissioners.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, so that is was commission item number 1. Okay, we're moving forward to our commission matter number 2. This is an update from Eduardo Solorzano. He is the secondary director of Los Angeles Unified School District, Local District Northeast. Eduardo, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for staying, hearing about the parking. If you have any input on that, feel free to jump in.
I'm very familiar with some of it. So first of all, thank you and good evening, everyone. So thank you, Chair Govea, commissioners, for the opportunity to introduce myself. Starting tomorrow, actually, I am humbled to be the San Fernando / Silmar Community Schools Administrator.
Awesome.
So yes, I do look forward to working alongside with you in the support of the San Fernando community. Just to give you a little bit of background, I am a product of LA Unified. I entered the district as a 6th grade English learner student from Mexico. And I was the first in my family to go to college, like a lot of your residents. I am here today because of caring people who guided me along the way. And I'm hoping to pay some of that forward and basically provide the opportunities that I was afforded as a student. And truth be told, I had I had no desire to ever go into education as a student, okay? I found my high school math teacher tooth and nail. He would always say, "You're gonna be a good math teacher." I was like, "Oh no, that's never happening. I'm gonna be a businessman. I'm gonna be a businessman." Lo and behold, he got the last laugh and he got the best laugh. So I've been in the district for 28 years, started as an elementary teacher, had the pleasure of working 3 years with Ms. Robledo, actually. She and I were partners in crime at a co-located site on the San Fernando campus. And I think we were doing some good work together. Unfortunately, that was not long-lived because I was sent to work downtown. No good deed goes unpunished. And I was asked to support schools going through public school choice, going through co-location based on the success that Ms. Robledo and I had working together. And I did do a little more than 3 years as San Fernando Middle School principal. I have over 10 years of central office and local district experience. So I do look forward to building relationships, to connecting with the community. And actually, as I was listening, I was actually taking notes on reaching out and engaging the principals around San Fernando Middle School, both principals, SFIM and SFMS, because there are 2 schools on that site. And they do have different start times and different end times. And so I've been part of that traffic challenge, trying to find a parking spot when I'm trying to visit the schools. So I'm happy to for the time being, when they're off, be your connection if there's anything I can do. And as soon as the principals return on July 22nd, I believe, 23rd, I'm happy to connect both of them. I do want to just share some updates, but I think Mr. Govea, you already brought him up. But the first one is we don't know what the instructions are going to look like, but we know that we're starting on August 18th, right? And while no decision has been made, we are looking at a hybrid model as one of the examples. But we're taking our lead from the public health, LA County Department of Public Health, as well as working with UCLA, with their health experts at UCLA. The hybrid model, actually, we're looking at is it 2 days on, 2 days off, so that students actually have face time with their teachers on a weekly basis. We are looking at providing parents the option of doing full-time remote learning or the hybrid model. And we surveyed parents and families as well as staff, I want to say about 2 weeks ago. And so once we land on which model we're going to implement, and whether it's the AB cohort model or something different, I'll be happy to share any insights with you via email, and just keep the email thread going on in case there is no opportunity to share with the whole commission like I am today. So that's pretty much the updates that I have. If there are any questions that I can either, as I've been telling my principals, questions I do not have answers to, but I'm happy to take down and get back to you on, or I might be able to provide an answer at the time. So, Ms. Moore, I think you had your hand up.
Yes. I was wondering if you have any information. I know this is like very in its nascency right now, but on AB 77, I know there's a lot of interpretation as to what the wording of AB 77 is. There's that bit in there that says that schools are to implement in-person learning to the greatest extent possible unless a child is medically unable to come to school. It says, or quarantining as a result of exposure to, or self-quarantining, but it's unclear as to whether or not that is self-quarantining by choice or self-quarantining based on like county public health asking them to, if parents will be able to choose distance, because that is causing, I know, a lot of concern in the education world, the wording of that budget bill. So any updates that you have on that would be fantastic.
So I do not have a specific update on AB 77 because we're actually waiting for the interpretation of that language ourselves. We had this discussion, internal discussion yesterday with my colleagues. However, Superintendent Buhner has made a commitment that if parents and families do not feel comfortable sending their children to school for in-person instruction, that's why we are exploring the full-time remote option. Now, what we're looking to do there is if we're going to offer that, we want to require a certain amount of online, face-to-face, remote interaction, which currently we do not have. And we're not prepared to share any of that because that's something that's being negotiated with our labor partners. But as soon as I have an update, I will be happy to share.
Yeah, like I said, I knew it was kind of asking a lot, but I was just wondering if you had any insight that we didn't have, but I know that is a concern of many of us.
Yeah, it's many of our staff as well. So we are waiting for clarification on that language.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Bevel? Mic check. Your mic, Olivia.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
If we offer the remote learning, how is ADA factored into this? I'm just curious how you can keep track of.
So we'll have to, and that's where I was saying we would need to actually require some FaceTime, some online FaceTime interaction. We'll be required to submit attendance. So we're waiting for the state to provide those guidelines, but the state will, they've already said if we're gonna be issuing ADA, there needs to be some way to track attendance, participation, and whatnot. Right. So that's on the table.
Yeah, I just want to share also, I compliment the district on their summer school program. Our children would not necessarily qualify to have any kind of instruction in the summer because they do well in school. And usually slots for the enrichment are very minimal. But one of my grandchildren is taking an art class and the other child is taking a drama class. It is very well run, and I'm just very, very grateful that we're making the best of the situation. So you can pass that along.
I was gonna say, thank you for the kind words. I'll pass that on and via email to both Superintendent Chade and Superintendent Buhner.
Okay.
So
great, thank you. Commissioner Llamas, any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question in regards to feeding our kids. What does it look like? Do we have any of our schools that have base year application processes this year? Or are all our schools already set? Because I would imagine most of the schools are Provision 2 schools, I would believe so. Do you have any insight as to what's going to happen with the state with our feeding program for our schools here?
So at this point, we are making a commitment that we're asking that all schools be held harmless, so that if they were a Provision 2 school, then we're asking that all schools that were Provision 2 continue to be Provision 2. In addition, we made a commitment that we are doing everything to do outreach to any family who has not completed the necessary paperwork to support schools who may not have been Provision 2 schools to be eligible to become Provision 2 schools. And that's been an ongoing effort. Actually closed today, and we reached out to all the families that we can connect with via telephone calls, via the robocalls, but also we had people from the schools. If they had 3 applications, let's say they had 3 families who hadn't completed it, we were calling those families to try to get them in. So.
Okay, thank you. And is our LAUSD schools, are they working with the online?
Can you expand on that? And I don't know if you faded or.
Yeah, you cut off after a while, Susan. You turned your mic off mid-sentence. Okay. Maybe you can type it, Susan, or we can get back to you on that. So if you want to hold that, and then Vice Chair Zola Rodriguez.
Sure. First of all, how many lunches at this point? The number keeps going bigger and bigger, and it's kind of almost like driving by the old McDonald's. Is it over so many million served? I was curious what the number was at this point because it's kind of inspiring.
So I haven't gotten any update. The last update we got, I think, was we were close to 10 million meals served totally.
Fantastic.
And at one point, the district, when we first launched this, and actually I helped set up one of the grab and go centers in its infancy. The original thought was we were going to feed all of our students. Well, it doesn't make sense to feed the students if you're not feeding the caregivers for those students. And so that's when we pivoted. And that's why we're hitting the high numbers that we are. But we've made that commitment that at least through, I want to say middle of August, we will continue with the grab and go centers. And then depending on what happens with our returning to school, returning to campus, then we'll make another determination at that time.
Forgive me, Mr. Solorzano, forgive that interruption on the call. But getting back to my concern or my question, from what I understand from you, we are committed to make sure our kids eat. And in working, you said that we were going to request a hold harmless to make sure that all our kids coming in will be fed. And so the question I had about the electronic applications, that is the way the district is going, correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
so they had the option of doing the online application or coming by the schools and filling out the paper pencil, coming by the local district. I know at the local district Northeast office, we had some applications and we were inviting parents who have said, I don't have access to the online form. They
Right.
can come and do it there in person.
Okay, good. Because I did have a concern of our parents who can't get in. I mean, who
Yes.
can't get online. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Great. Yeah, I just had a couple comments. One, I just want to thank you for all the work that you've been doing. As a fellow educator, I know, I mean, these past few months have just been completely insane in regards to just how quickly we needed to shift and adapt and move. And the fact that we're serving millions and millions of meals to students across the city, I think shows you the importance of not only public education, but just schools as an institution, as a part of the community. So thank you for being on the front line of that and doing all the work that you're doing. Very vital work. A couple questions that I have just practically. Through our conversations with administrators, you mentioned that you are now the San Fernando Summer Liaison. What does that mean? What does that entail?
So actually, I was designated as principal of San Fernando Middle School, San Fernando High School. I was designated the liaison for a couple of the previous meetings, and I actually stopped by for some of the San Fernando City Council meetings. Effective tomorrow, in essence, we are reorganizing the district and we're going into communities to schools. And so I will be leading the San Fernando Silmar community where I will oversee 34 schools from early ed centers through high school. So high school, I will have Silmar, all the Chavez schools, and San Fernando High School, and all their corresponding middle schools and elementary schools. So that starts tomorrow.
Are these just district schools, or are you working with like Puck charter schools and Discovery?
No, just district schools, just
Got
district schools.
Okay.
And
Great,
so
yeah.
the idea, if I may, the idea there is that Superintendent Buhner feel strongly that the decisions are best made locally. And as someone that fought for autonomy when I was principal, I agree with that. My only ask is it's autonomy to and not autonomy from. So I may not have to do it the way the district's telling me to do it. For example, if I want to use formative assessments to inform instruction, I don't have to use the district's formative assessment. I can use my own formative assessments at the school site, as long as they give me the information that I need to plan instruction to improve student outcomes. And so that's why I always say, it's autonomy to, not autonomy from. And that's actually why I got pulled from San Fernando, because they asked me to lead some of that work across the entire district. So.
Wow, congratulations.
It's very, very exciting.
Well, I'm glad to be back, but I did not want to leave. I actually really, I think Mr. Robledo and I really work well together. We increased the enrollment because when the school was first split into two co-located schools, when that campus was split, enrollment went down. There was a lot of bridge building that needed to happen. And I think Ms. Robledo and I, we just really, the way I like to describe it is it was a symbiotic, synergistic approach to the work that how do we benefit the community and help both schools? And I think that's what really, I don't know, Ms. Robledo, if I'm speaking, you can tell me afterwards and say, I got my story all wrong, but that was my impression, that we did some good work in healing the community, bringing back the togetherness, and really supporting students, because as I would see it is, sometimes the students lived in the front of the house with one family, and then they lived with the primos lived in the back of the house or in the garage or whatnot. And to me, it was all one community. And so I mean, I was happy to support the splitting of, I don't know if you remember Kia funds, which at one point it was a grant that was a state grant that was given only to certain schools. And when the school split, I actually had to go up to Sacramento to fight so that the students who broke away from San Fernando would be entitled to get those funds. And that's really how I approach it. It's really, that's what I'm saying. The decisions are best made locally. We know our communities, you know your communities. And so I look forward to working closely to saying, how do we best meet the needs of the Chavez complex, the San Fernando Middle School SFIM community, because they may be very similar communities, but having worked at Sun Valley Middle School, McLean Middle School, and at San Fernando Middle School, I can tell you, on the surface, they may say, oh, it's the same community. But having worked in all three of them, they're very distinct communities. And so that's where I think there's no one size fits all. And so making decisions locally makes more sense. So my job is going to be to support those 34 schools in those communities.
In regards to the opening, I'm just curious. I'm curious. It seems like the political winds are shifting in direction to open up schools, both at a state and a federal level. I'm wondering, what is the Northeast Valley saying? What are the parents saying, and what are the teachers saying in regards to the safety and comfort going back to school, especially amidst, I think LA just had its highest case of COVID today. Then this pandemic.
I have not received the data for the parent surveys. I know for the teachers, there's actually about, I want to say maybe 65-35% split that teachers feel comfortable coming back, 65% of them. 35 say, well, I need to make sure that there's robust testing and whatnot, because we all had to complete that. And when I say teachers, it's actually all LEUs, the employees. We were asked to complete that survey. And so I'm hoping that we can get access to the parent survey. That was just so that we can start exploring the options, right? And making some preliminary decisions, if you will. Once we determine the way we're going, parents will actually be given an option, and not necessarily a survey, an option. And once that option is made, like we're saying, okay, you want to go 100% remote, then we can't do a pivot, say 2 months down the road, say now I want to go in person, because if we're planning space usage, right, around say 50% capacity of the people who say we want to be doing an in-person training or the hybrid model, if we're planning for 50%, we cannot have those numbers fluctuating back and forth, because that'll throw off the planning if we are to meet the social distancing, right? If we're to meet the CDC requirements and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, and I've just been hearing some things from teachers in regards to, the fact that 35% of the educators might not feel comfortable coming back I know that's going to be a different conversation with labor and ETLA and everything.
Exactly.
But with that, 35% of the teachers not going back to work.
Well, 35% of staff, yeah, staff, including paraprofessionals, including administrators, like your humble servant here. I don't mind going back, but I'm saying all people like myself, we also had to complete that survey.
Okay, great.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
If you do the hybrid, I'm curious, what is being offered for working parents on the days that the students are not going to be in school? Is it up to the parents to look for childcare? What's going to happen? I understand that the district can't offer everything and fulfill all the needs, but that's a burden on a family.
But we're exploring what Beyond the Bell, what the district can offer through Beyond the Bell, so that on a day that a student is not like, so we have cohort A and cohort B. When cohort 8 is on, for the parents that need to go to work and need some sort of childcare, right? We're exploring spaces within the district, as well as partnerships with like Boys and Girls Club, where we may use their space, but staff it through Beyond the Bell programs to provide that support. Because even when their cohort is off, if in the hybrid model, they should be engaging in online learning, whether it's synchronous with someone on the other end of the line, or whether it's self-paced with them doing it at their own pace. There needs to be some sort of monitoring whatnot. So the district is looking at that. I surveyed all of our schools the last 3 days, asking them, if you were to do a hybrid model, would you have any space available where we can use empty classrooms or common spaces for Beyond the Bell to provide the childcare and whatnot.
Great. Thank you for answering that. Commissioner Moore?
I'll make it quick, but I wanted to comment on Commissioner Robledo's concern about ADA. I do know that one of the things that's written into some of the budget bills that they've been passing is that even though they do want schools to report attendance numbers in terms of distance learning, that nobody's going to be penalized for students who fail to log in. So I think that for our community, especially, the numbers have been all over the place. And if they're talking about attendance daily, I know that the concern about money being tied to attendance was big. So it's reassuring to me to know that our schools aren't going to lose money over that. But I am concerned about what you're talking about the hybrid model. One of the things that our school has been looking at, and I'm sorry, I teach at a charter, an independent charter. One of the things that the school I teach at has been looking at, and I would encourage you to look at with all of our community schools in LAUSD, is families. And as we cohort them, cohorting them together. Because what we've found in the past 3 months is that a lot of our older students, our high school students, were being the caregivers for the elementary school students during the day and then doing their own homework at night. And so I think that, a lot of those concerns can be alleviated by working with families to make sure that they're cohorted together. Even though I know that there's different minute requirements and things happening, but I do hope that they'll do everything they can to enable some of those things to continue.
And so we've actually had some of those conversations, because back when I was teaching, we had the tracks, and it wasn't perfect, but families, like if I was on B track, my siblings would be on B track, whether they were at the elementary school or the high school, right? And so we already started those discussions. How do we provide that so that the families then can be cohorted in the same cohorts, A's or B's?
Well, it's not great for our high schoolers to have to be a half-time, part-time parent / teacher.
Right.
It's also the reality of a difficult situation right now. So
yeah.
So much logistics. Great. I think that's it. Thank you so much, Eduardo, for coming.
Sure.
We so much appreciate having you.
And I will share my contact information, because at this point, I still don't have a phone number in my office. I was there earlier today. My office will be on the Hubbard Street Elementary campus, next to their parent center. But they were installing the phone lines today. So as soon as I have that, I will share that with the city clerk so that then it can be available to everybody. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
And as a fellow LAUSD alum, I'm very proud of you, man. You're doing good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Good seeing you again, Olivia.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. I might call on you. Don't be surprised.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. So we're gonna move forward to our next agenda item. So if you have the agenda in front of you, the remaining items are just the ones that we normally go over. It feels nice to have these discussions in regards to, scholarships and teacher spotlight and student of the month. I think it's safe to say that all of these things, including principals brunch, student of the month, will probably not look like it did last year, just because we're still in the middle of a global pandemic. But I think we have proven through the scholarship administration that we can still do some really cool things. So I'm hoping that we can use the remainder of the meeting, just kind of maybe beginning the brainstorm about how do these events look this next upcoming academic year, assuming that we're going virtual, assuming that city council meetings will not be resuming like they were before, and assuming that we are still, abiding by social distancing rules. In the event that everything just clears up magically, then, we can adjust at that point. But I think we're all aware of how things are working here. So I think we still do great work regardless of if there's a pandemic or not. So yeah, we'll go on and discuss item by item. And I think, maybe not taking any direct action, but just brainstorming as to kind of how this looks like, or how do you guys see this looking like during, this upcoming year, and assuming that things are working the way they're working now. So agenda item number 3 is the scholarship process, application, and awards. I would love Vice Chair Zolba Rodriguez to comment on this. She is one of the founders of this commission, and this has been her baby. And it was so refreshing for me to see that we were still able to do our thing, in the capacity that we were. And I want to thank Angel for taking the lead on it, and just continually putting her heart and soul and everything into this project. So Angel, what's your thoughts on it? How'd it go?
Okay, I don't have a senior this year. I had a senior last year. And so this year has felt to me, we have been both guilty and commiserating with the loss that college freshmen got. So when it came to the scholarship event, I didn't want the kids to feel like, well, here's your check, congratulations, you won. We did not have a normal year. We did not have a scholarship event, but we sent out cupcakes, and I saw Sweetness deliver them on my street. And I've seen the boy next door with the little signs out front from Vaughn. Ironically, my husband helped put those together, so I knew the kid that I didn't know that lived next door. And they did the drive-by parade. So everybody has put their thinking caps on and tried to come up with different ways to make things as awesome as they can be. The social media posts, I have already reached out to Julie, and they went nuts. I mean, people were just commenting on them. Every grandparent forwarded it to people. There are people that are commenting on them. I don't know who they are. I've never seen them at a meeting. I don't know who they are, but they're super excited that the scholarships went out. They got a little bit of recognition, and I'm super happy that we were able to at least get them acknowledged. And maybe Facebook is not where the kids live right now, but it is where their grandparents are. I can assure you that is where the grandparents are. And Instagram and wherever else. But it is important that we remember that even when they say what we can't do, that we try to figure out what we can do. And they will cash their checks. The checks have gone out. When they need to make a deposit, whether they figure out if they're going to be on campus or whether that pays for a book, it's important. And I know that from the work that Councilmember Ballin said about the infamous scholarship she got as a kid. I know that Zoe's very first scholarship was in bowling, and she was 6, and she looked up and said, I'm going to college now. And I'm like, well, yeah, you were going to college anyway. But the point was, at 6, she won a bowling scholarship, and in her head, that means she had to go to school because she had to spend it. She wasn't allowed to spend it until then. So it's exciting to me that even, you guys are all dealing with having kids at home, all kinds of family issues. We still were able to provide scholarships. I want to be able to do this going forward. I know our funding is not at the same place. I know that a lot of the local businesses are going to have a difficult time, but I do believe that we need to try to figure out how to at least provide some scholarships, whether they're at school, whether we can have a banquet, or whether we have cupcakes and a pizza delivered. I don't care. I want to be able to recognize how awesome the kids are in San Fernando. I mean, we read the essays. We know what kind of obstacles these kids overcome. And when they get to college, let's at least have some money in their pockets. It's not going to be enough for anything big. We know that, but at least we have the opportunity to tell them they're worthy of going. They need to go. And if it pays for a couple of books, that's a couple of hours they don't have to work that week, that semester. So we keep going forward. We see if we can find some other businesses. We could talk to our council members, and if they do have any discretionary funds that they are not committing to other equally worthy projects, we can look around and see what we can find. But I definitely believe that the scholarship program is our crown jewel.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I agree with you. I would just, first of all, Cynthia, I want to just give kudos to you, because I know on the back end there was so much work that you were doing on behalf of the Education Commission, just the city in general. And I know for you, this isn't just work that I need to do. This is, you're in the job that you're in because you want to make things better. So you're doing it. So I want to thank you for putting your love, your heart, and everything into this, because it was apparent in the work that you were doing. I know we asked a lot of you, and you were able to do it all within a short amount of time. And we're very, very proud of you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I mean, I live in the community as well. So seeing this, it's growing our community. So I'm excited.
Yeah. And I want to comment what Julie said. Julie was doing the social media post, and I thanked her directly. And she said, it's nice to be able to post good things. And I think for a lot of our, followers on social media, it's nice to be able to read good things, and to remind us that, hey, good things are happening, even though we're kind of bombarded with so much, dark news at times. It was nice to provide some light. And I'm glad that the Education Commission continues to be that source of positivity in the times where maybe there's not as much positivity. I know we did it at the council meetings, with our Student of the Month, and I'm glad that we're doing it on social media with our scholarship post.
David?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, just so that everyone is really aware of what Cynthia was doing, is that I'm sure we've all had kids at this age, David, you'll get there, but you can send texts, you can send emails, you can send smoke signals, you can send a lot of things, and you hear nothing. And it's like, we need to hear from you by such and such. We'd like to see that, we'd like to. We were all reaching out, but Cynthia was the one keeping track of 10. It's like herding cats. I mean, keeping track of what she had from each kid, because we had to have a waiver. We had to have their little information, their photo, and they're not all in school right now. So it was even harder, but we did take advantage of some community partners and say, this is your kid. Can you get a hold of them? And then lo and behold, all of a sudden there'd be an email. So we were doing what we could to get them, but Cynthia was the one that had the checklist, making sure that everything came in.
Thank you, Cynthia. Also, I just have to share with you, I'm still old school. I still read my hard copy newspaper every morning. And it was really exciting to see the press release come out in the newspaper. And what David was saying about good, positive news coming out, that was really a heart warmer. So thank you for taking care of that.
Yeah, we got picked up by the Daily News. I mean, I think this is the first time, right? The Daily News picked us up for our scholarship. So yeah, to get some media shine for the city of San Fernando, how cool is that? The fact that we're doing the work that we're doing. So they did a really good writing it up. Cool. Any other comments from any commissioners in regards to this?
I was just so impressed with how many views. I don't know if that's normal. Like, I don't follow the views that much, but Gosh, some of those scholarship videos, the student spotlights got like 1,000 views.
They're
Are
famous.
you implying that some of the other social media from the city doesn't get 1,000 views?
I don't know, but I was just like, 1,000.
There are a lot of proud grandparents.
Yes.
And
yes.
and unlike our event, it's something that we can think about for the future, because even when we have the event and we bring the parents and the families out, that gets forwarded all over the world. So there were a lot of them that got like insane amounts of hits. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I think lesson learned. I mean, regardless of whether we have a banquet in person, I think we continue to do these social media posts if it's not too burdensome, because it was cool to just have, grandparents share their kids' stuff and say how proud of them they are, and link back to the city. And it really is good shine for everyone involved. Olivia, do you have any comments or questions?
Can you hear me? Am I muted or?
No, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay. No, I just want to say that thank you, Cynthia, again, because anytime I was in a pickle, she always helps me. But what I feel is very honored to be part of this endeavor. And I think that it can make a difference in the life of a young person. And so anytime we can touch people's lives in a positive way, especially in this day, if we can be an instrument in that endeavor, I think it's an honor. So thank you, everybody. And I know that sometimes when we come to the meeting of the decision making, I'm a little bit anxious because I want all my kids to win that I liked. And I know you all feel the same way. So I think that the other part about being part of this group is that I feel that there is a lot of respect, and you don't always get that in a group. So it's just a very pleasant experience. And so I want to thank you all for that also.
Okay. Any other comments in regards to this? My vision is that, when it comes to the scholarship, we can continue to move forward just because there really is no face-to-face, aside from the banquet. I think we should go over the budget just to kind of see what we're working with for this next year, and maybe discuss, seeing if we can get to more, but it's kind of hard when you're in a recession, but it's not impossible. So yeah, I guess we'll have the budget up right now. Cynthia, do you want to kind of run us through what we're working with? You're muted as well, so.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Susan, yes.
Yes, okay. I just want to make a comment before we go into the budget, and this is in regards to the graduate banners that were placed up in the city, and that was by the Department of Rec. That was an amazing thing to occur for our graduates. And when you were talking about grandparents and families, to have those banners up, it created a lot of positive vibrations through, families at large. And just like I was remembering what Olivia sounded like as when she was talking about her kids and her valedictorians, and it was just, yeah, you're right. The grandparents are maybe old school. However, the pulling together of the family, it has to do a lot with visuals, and those banners were amazing. Did we have anything to do to help with that process, or was it all the Department of Rec?
It was Department of Recs that they did come to us kind of last minute, like so they were doing it. But just so you know, when it comes to like agenda items and things, we have to kind of focus on the topic that's here. If you want to make that same comment, Susan, during general commissioner comments, we're technically not allowed to like discuss deeply about these things unless it's agendized.
I understand. Thank you for that.
Okay, no problem. That's just Brown Act. So I just want to make sure we're following our rules here.
Got it.
But yeah, you're more than welcome to say that again during general commissioner comments, and we can't really go too deep into it unless it's on the agenda for transparency purposes.
Thank you for the guidance.
No problem. So Cynthia. You're muted, Cynthia.
There you go. I do have the budget open. So on here, I am demonstrating the scholarships that were given out. So we have the Gabriel Fernandez Scholarship that was taken from the California Latino Water Coalition. So that brought that account down to $0. We do have the Gabriel Fernandez Memorial Scholarship account. We do have $0 in that account as well, but that's what we had going into the year last year. We have the Elias Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship Funds. That is, I left it untouched for now. It's at $550. And instead of having all of our ICFA money in the general ICFA account, which is really, it could be designated to the veterans, to the seniors, I decided to just move the Education Commission's ICFA funds into the scholarship account that is designated for scholarships for the Education Commission. So you will see that $2,250 there. Then you subtract the 4 scholarships that were given out. We have Commissioner Zobel Rodriguez's stipend donation. We still have the Why Not You birthday campaign that you had from Facebook. And the other funds were added from council members' community investment funds, and these scholarships were given out as well. So that brings that total to $4,850 for the next year. We also have $401 in the startup, the so-called startup account. And that's really for the cupcakes were used, the business cards. I still have the principal's brunch information on there, but now that we're going into the new fiscal year, I'm going to be removing a lot of this year so we get a fresh start going into the next fiscal year and school year for the next year.
Great. Cynthia, do you know the timeline on, I know, I had sent the kind of statement to the city council meeting when they were having their budget discussions. Do you know when the budget gets voted on, finalized, and
the proposed budget was already adopted on the 15th, I believe. And I believe the funds are going to be carried over. So that this $400 here will be carried over until the next fiscal year. But I'm gonna have to double check. I can pull it up right now. I'm gonna double check if anything else was added.
Okay.
And the proposed budget is on the city website under the finance department and financial documents. So I am checking that right now.
Okay. Great. So as we're discussing budget, I know we had an ad hoc committee that was looking at any potential funding sources. Obviously, when we kind of created that, it was a much different time than it is now. Are there any thoughts on how we can kind of maybe boost some of these numbers up, not only for this year, but for subsequent years? Because again, 2 of these funding sources, the ICFA and CLWC, are both dried up. They're both gone. So those were the continual sources of monies that we had. Obviously, we still can bank on maybe some of our city council members to put in a few $100s here and there, but in terms of our big bulk amount of cash, we do no longer have those anymore. So Commissioner Moore, you want to comment on any updates?
No, I'm wondering because I think it was Commissioner Ramos and Commissioner Robledo, you put together like a PowerPoint presentation. I'm wondering if it would be possible to do a community forum on our scholarship program, maybe sooner rather than later, to sort of capitalize on the interest we got and all of those excited grandparents, and see if people would be willing to make a donation towards one of these scholarships. I'm not sure the logistics of that financially or legally, but I just figured maybe if there's some sort of way, like I know that some of the neighborhood watch meetings have been happening on Zoom and stuff like that too. So I'm wondering if there's some way that they could do a forum to sort of put it out there that this is something that people can do to help our city and our students.
It's good suggestion. Anyone else have any thoughts? Feel free to just jump in. No. Okay, so yeah, we'll continue, guys, to play around with this. I mean, you know where we're at. I mean, we still have enough to move forward within another year of this. If you know the ad hoc committee meets again and they can explore other options, maybe taking Commissioner Moore's suggestion, or if you guys just have your ears to the street of any kind of sources of funding. Obviously, one of the things is that the city is not a nonprofit, so we've had this issue several times. If someone does donate, then they don't get a tax write-off for it. But with the finance bill in Congress a while back, a lot of people can't write that stuff off anyway. So there's not as much of an incentive to do that. But I think we're excited to continue to move forward. We'll talk about questions and things like that as the date approaches. I know we still have a potential source of income with the parking company that we worked with. So we'll elaborate on that once I find out more information about it. But I think we're in pretty good position. And even if we're not, I mean, the commission still has a lot of great things that we're working on that we'll, I'm sure, explore in the future. Any final comments before we close out this item and move to our next?
I just double checked the proposed budget that's on the website, and this specific account, the 4450 that is used for, well, that can be used for scholarships, has $799 in the proposed 2021 budget. So it's going forward.
So that's additional funding?
No, that it just to total $799, I believe, but I will confirm and get that information to you.
Wait, so it wouldn't be $4,000, it would be $700?
No. That, not the scholarship funds. Can't be the extra startup fund.
Got it.
For our scholarship as well as for principal's brunch and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, that's just for like the portos, principal's bunch, the cupcakes, extra stuff.
So the proposed balance is adding 700 on top of the 100, or adding 300 potentially?
It's, I believe it's just totaling $799. So it would be adding the 300, but I will confirm tomorrow, since tomorrow's the first day of the budget. I can go in and pull that report.
Well, that looks like what we spent this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just maintaining it approximately?
Yeah, pretty much. So it'd be maybe 400 for the principal's brunch, 400 for the scholarship ceremony.
Okay. Yeah,
I will confirm that it's not an additional $799, or if it's totaling $799.
Got it. Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for looking that up so quickly too. Great. So our next agenda item, we're going to discuss the teacher spotlight nomination. So this is something that I think we can actually do some pretty good work on. Obviously, you guys, we have two, educators here who, I'm telling you, I'm sure Commissioner Moore can attest, having to pivot the way that we did was one of the biggest challenges of my professional life. It was insane. The amount of work that goes into in preparation. Most educators that I know work more doing virtual learning than typically throughout our year. So I think this is a great opportunity to throw some shine towards some of the teachers that went above and beyond what they had to do and just did it because of the kindness of their heart. I would personally like to move forward with the nomination process. I think there's probably a lot of administrators who would, and teachers or students who would love to give their teachers some recognition. But how does this look in 2020 virtually? I'm curiosity. So we'll start with Vice Chair Silva Rodriguez.
We did get some applications towards the end of last year, but it very much felt like it was assigned or encouraged by one staff member to the other. So a lot of the ones we got, there's maybe 6 or 7 in there. Maybe there's more, I can check. But they felt like they were 1 or 2 lines, and they were just kind of, they were not heartfelt. What I was hoping for was a much more inspirational thing when we started this. On the other hand, there's this pandemic thing, and I feel like anybody who still plans on being a teacher next year, who got through the last 3 months, deserves like a big old sticker right on their forehead because you guys survived. I feel like every parent deserves cupcakes for everybody because everybody got through this, and they're facing it. You're all facing it again. So I think that we can look at it. School doesn't start back up until August, and we can definitely look at it next month. I could see what's in there. We can look at it and see how we want to change it, because it's not just nominate your favorite teacher. It's literally going to be the ones that are carrying everything on the way to the back and moving forward. I know with LAUSD, the students are only required, or the teachers are only required to work 4 hours a day right now, because they're also dealing with their family situations. But I know that there were teachers that were working many more hours than that and trying to reach students. And there were principals that were out in the line every single day for the grab and go, for the entire duration of the grab and go since day one, before we were even sure how it was spreading. They were out there because it was their school. So I would like to, I don't think this one is a heavy expense one. And in the we're not meeting right now environment, if we can do it with social media, I would love to see us do it with social media. You know, so we can definitely look at this again next month. I don't know how, you know, I'd love feedback today, but we can look at it and really chew on it next month. So those are my comments.
Okay, any other commissioner want to jump in?
What you were saying about the people who went above and beyond, would it be possible to just throw an extra little box? I mean, for you, the ad hoc committee, if the ad hoc committee for the teacher spotlight could look at the application and just figure out how to add that somehow, you know, how has this, during this pandemic, how has this educator gone above and beyond? Or something like that. If maybe we could like add something like that and then put it back out there. Like ask the principals and the families, try social media again to see if we get more applications.
I agree with that. And I also think that we can do it for the pandemic for a little bit. And then there's going to ideally be a post-pandemic, like this becomes the normal. I mean, there's going to come a time where we don't want everything to be about the pandemic, but I definitely feel like at this point, there are people that are doing far more. Just we have recognized every class, every graduate of the class of 2020, every way we can. We've done things on the news. We've seen every single news channel. I don't even know how long they're going to keep doing the little flashes where you see all the kids from all over. And occasionally I'll see someplace that I actually recognize the city, not even necessarily the kid, like, whoa, okay, that's one I know. I didn't even know that was a city. But we have that opportunity here, but we definitely have an opportunity, and we can even reach out to begin with, to reach out to the principals and see. I do want it to go back to the point where it's motivation from the students, but I think at this point, the people who know what's going on and the people that are really reaching, just the situation with kids not having devices and not having Wi-Fi, and kids, Commissioner Moore, you brought up how important it was that Starbucks left their Wi-Fi on. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they're all community partners in this. You know, people don't realize how important that is until you have 3 or 4 devices on that were never intended in one household at once, and it just crawls to a halt. So I would definitely like to add a question to the thing about the pandemic and how they read. We may not hear, you know, in July. That's why I think we have another month, but we can bring back what our suggestion is and then let it go live for August when it starts, because it is going to be difficult if they're going Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, and we don't know that they are going back because the numbers are going not in the way we were hoping. So I definitely like that idea. Thank you.
Yeah, from a planning perspective, just so you know, I'm sure Nicole feels the same way. It feels like if we do go back hybrid, it's going to be double the work, just because you're preparing for virtual distance learning and in-class instruction, managing that, and, you know, plus again the social emotional stuff that we're going to be dealing with as well just adds another layer while still maintaining our own household. So we definitely want to give some teachers some shine, you know, this upcoming year. And I think adding a question, we'll meet together as the ad hoc and we'll look how, you know, we can best word that and make sure we send that out to the administrators once they return. Any other final thoughts, guys, on this topic, how it looks virtually? Any thoughts before we move to our next?
You know, what I was thinking about is, we know Teacher Spotlight is about individual teachers. And like you said, normally it was our kids who were giving the the kudos to our teachers. But in this uncharted time, what's the possibility of us maybe going in a little different direction right now? Meanwhile, the pandemic is new, of maybe highlighting the teachers at a school, teachers, or highlighting the schools instead of like teacher spotlight. It could be teacher spotlight from San Fernando Middle School, or San Fernando Middle School teacher spotlight, I should say, where even the possibility of doing something online or a video of sorts to share what they have been doing for their classes and their communities. I know at our school, when our teachers were really getting to the point where they were really missing the kids and they needed to communicate, what they did is they created these videos where the teachers were sending out messages, and that seemed to get to a lot of people. So what would be and this is just a thought because it's going away from the teacher spotlight structure, but what's the possibility of maybe having a transitional type of, like I said, school teacher spotlight, where more teachers were highlighted, given there's so many who are doing so much out there? Well, you know, that's just a thought. What do you think about something like that?
You want to share their thoughts, Livy?
I was going to say that my disappointment in this in the past has been that, you know, there hasn't been enough participation from elementary schools and, you know, the different levels and across different schools. So I was thinking, you know, I have a lot of time on my hand, if we could call the principal. We're not getting the emails. So maybe if we called them and said, give me a name of a person, and tell me 3 things about the person. So I was thinking of that, but then I heard Susana talk about it, and I do like that of spotlighting a school or having them share how they're, you know, coping with the situation. And maybe, because even here in our home, there are some positive things that have happened that wouldn't have happened if we had been in our normal situation. So maybe they could highlight something they've learned or something that has enriched the community, the school community in some way. It's not all negative, I don't think, or it doesn't have to be. We have to look for opportunities where this stay at home or being with our families or communicating in different ways through Zoom or having different kinds of classes. Some positive things can happen too. So we could have them share those positive things. For instance, what you just mentioned, Susana, where they created videos for their students. If I were a student, I got a video from my teacher, I think I would be really jazzed about that. So that's a positive thing because they resorted to looking for a different way to interact. So, so I kind of like the idea. I don't know how we would do it, but you know, we're putting ideas on the table. So.
No, I love it. I want us to be very cautious of. We had a discussion with staff that we are not allowed to assign work to the city employees. I think it's one of those things where if we wanted to take it on and shoot and edit and do that kind of stuff, then why not, right? You're a commissioner, you can go ahead and do that. But I love the idea of shooting video and highlighting and editing that. I'm a little concerned of the amount of manpower hours that can get involved with that, because if there is a significant amount of effort that is required by city staff, it's something that needs to get approved by city council. So just logistically kind of looking at that. Commissioner Moore, you want to either comment on that or something else?
Sorry, I've been on too many Zooms. I feel like I have to raise my hand now. I'm thinking, you know, I think that in the long term, I think that the idea of having single teacher spotlights is a very good idea because it's a resume builder too. And just like, you know, highlighting all of the teachers of San Fernando Middle School or Morningside or whatever isn't going to do anything for, like, you know, Mrs. Smith, who's the teacher at XYZ school. Whereas if you do actually, recognize someone, they can put, oh, I was, teacher spotlight teacher of the month in June 2020 or whatever, on their resume. And a lot of times it's hard for teachers who are just pouring all of themselves into the classroom to like find those resume builders, but you still kind of need them, However, that said, I was thinking that maybe for this month, an interesting way would be to go about it, because like you said, it's hard to get the participation, but it sounds like Mr. Solorzano has been working with all the schools in our community. And if we could maybe ask him to just for, for July, maybe for one of the, are there still 2 city council meetings in July? If maybe we could ask him to just give us a school that we could say, okay, our teachers, our first teacher spotlights, we haven't done one yet, have we? I don't think we've ever decided one. If we said, okay, our first teacher spotlight of this program, we intend to give it to a single teacher, but based on the strange circumstances, our very first one is going to go to all the teachers of X school that Mr. Solorzano perhaps might nominate, since he seems like he has a wider perspective than a lot of us. And just a shout out, not even necessarily a long video or anything like you said, but if it could be, one of us pop onto their Zoom, or just, have somebody read it at least, just to be able to give them the public shout out and the public recognition at least.
I like those ideas. So what I'm hearing is that we'll go ahead and look at the survey that we're giving out, and we'll add the question in regards to kind of pandemic planning, and then we'll reach out to Mr. Solorzano and kind of see if there's any schools of note that we can look at recognizing for this upcoming meeting. Was there anything else, Angela?
I think that'll do it. I mean, if it doesn't end up becoming for July, it could still be for August, because if we're going to try to, because the other thing is whether, I am not the editing person, but I can pretty much guarantee you that if a school was to nominate or be nominated as all the teachers, there would be kids at that school that could edit videos together from TikTok or whatever, because they all seem to be able to do it already on their own. So I'm sure that in terms of, yes, we do not want to add any work to staff or create a video or create a moment, but if we said we are going to highlight the staff of X school and all the kids get the videos in, it will have the same issue we have with the scholarships, that we will not get 400 videos from 400 children, because 400 children will not do a thing. But we might get a handful, and then we could also reach out to Mr. Solorzano and to Andres and some of the people at the district, and just let them say what's going on at that school. And then we can decide, even for the first semester, how this is working, rather than try to look at one teacher. And if it works out, then maybe we do a full staff and a teacher. Because it may not even be a teacher, it may be an aide that's working with a kid, because I know right now there's a lot of the kids that have paras that are not getting their paras. So if there is somebody that's working on the side trying to get the kids to be caught up, then that teacher spotlight was the idea behind, we're highlighting a kid. I wanted to highlight what awesome jobs teachers are doing, but there's also staff, and there's the entire staff. So I'm open to all those things, but let's open up the form and see what we can come up with for next month, and we can bring it back.
Sounds good. So I think we'll go ahead and move forward to the next agenda item. I believe that was last comments on the teacher acknowledgement. Our next agenda item relates to our student of the month. So where we left off during March is we did have a student that we're going to acknowledge, and we were not able to acknowledge them. City council meeting was canceled, for everyone. So we still haven't really given them the shine that they would deserve. And then there's students, of course, in April, May, that we just never sent out surveys and they had nominations for. But I'm curious to know, big picture, how does this look like for students as well? I mean, we can mirror a lot of what we're doing for the scholarship and for our teacher spotlight. But is there any other way that we can acknowledge our students publicly as San Fernando Student of the Month that you guys think has a lot of value to them I think still doing it is important because, again, not only is it a application builder for schools, it's just one of those things that it's nice to be acknowledged for what you're doing. And I think we have the capacity and the power to do that. So even if we can't bring them to meet the mayor and stuff like that, we can still do it as a commission and at least post them, digitally. But is there any way that you guys kind of envision this that can really kind of yield a lot of good results?
Okay, you guys are at school sites. Are you having any kind of morning announcements at your schools, for your schools? Is there anybody providing morning announcements to your classrooms?
No.
Go ahead.
The robo dial that goes out, but I think some of the kids have blocked us all.
Okay, I know that at Van Nuys High School, there was always the morning announcements. They would do all the announcements. And then at the end, there was a howl because they're the wolves. And you could hear that for blocks away. So if you happen to be several blocks away on Kester and you heard this blood-curdling scream, it was actually a wolf pack howl. But I would love to see, I know there's a Honda commercial, the helpful Honda guy pops in on a Zoom call with a food bank. I would love to see something like that. If that is something that's feasible, it would be fantastic if one of our city council members and commissioners could be part of that. On the other hand, if it's just a commissioner, we're trying to come up with recognition. And if it's in a class Zoom or I know there's legal ramifications and we would have to find the nuances with the schools, who's allowed to see, who's allowed to be involved. Because I know that there's questions having people invited in, or whether it's just a real quick recorded video to congratulate the kids, and then find out, get a bio for the kid, and then hopefully do some kind of a social media post as well. Again, I know we're not allowed to add work to anybody, but if it's a simple format, just like we do with the certificates, then hopefully it's not that much work. But I would really like to be able to recognize the students, and I know that having them in front of city council is probably not happening for a very long time.
Any other thoughts on this question?
Is there any way to get them onto the city council Zoom?
I don't know.
We might be able to do it as a presentation. The city council still has had a few presentations, even though they are on Zoom.
Have they had like recognitions or awards that people showed up to, out of curiosity?
No, mostly PowerPoint presentations, kind of like how the presenters joined today. But that kind of opens it up. It's maybe possible. I think we're going to have to get used to adapting and changing, and this might just be a new part of it.
Because the students know how to Zoom. So if we could contact the ones who were supposed to be acknowledged in March and see if I guess first you'd have to ask city council.
Yeah, we'd have to get, are they okay with that? I think that's the first question.
Would they be willing to maybe, if we could put it into them for public comment for their next meeting or something, ask if they're willing to, I don't even know how to go about this, but I feel like if they're willing to have the student, pop on momentarily just so that, we could read something about it, or, I know that they're trying to keep their meeting short. Maybe we can invite the student to our next meeting. At least this is on YouTube now.
I will check with the city manager regarding the city council meeting, because I think that's a great idea.
I'm remembering back last year, there was somebody that was recognized as student of the month, and they were also in a softball tournament. Do I have this right? David, do you remember? There was a student who was supposed to be student of the month. They were in a softball tournament and they came flying in the back as fast as they could. And they did make it, but they were good. They were going to do it by presentation, and then they didn't need to do it by video. Do you remember that, Cynthia? I mean, that was like before the pandemic, so we have no memory that actually is like things come up like dreams.
I do remember that. Yeah, she was like the volleyball. Yeah.
Volleyball or softball, and they made it, but they weren't supposed to. But they came and they arrived. But we were going to do it by presentation. We were going to do it by recording.
I had the presentation ready to go and the equipment out with the video ready to go, and she showed up.
And it was one of those few times that with all the work that you put into it, it was actually more exciting to see her come flying in, because that's how important it was. She was team captain, or I think she was team captain, and it was important for her to be there for her team. And as much as that stung, because, well, we're trying to present you with this awesome thing, and it's like, no, you belong with your team, and that's the most awesome thing. That's a testament to your character. So I think we almost had this precedent, so I don't think it's that impossible. We can promise that it's only going to be a couple of minutes. It's not going to be super long, both for the student and for city council, because I do understand that the meetings of late have gone very long.
And this would be starting in August.
I would say probably closer to September, just because it gives staff
Time to get started.
Yeah, but yeah,
Catching up with the March.
Whenever they're willing to and an agenda put it in, or if they can't, maybe we can put it into our August one or our July one, just at least to get those March ones recognized.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I think one of the March ones, maybe both of them, but I think one of them was a senior.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see if they're willing to attend our meeting. I think just because it's a little bit easier, so maybe we'll have them for our July meeting. So I'll reach out to them and I'll kind of build that communication. And then in the meantime, Cynthia, if you want to just kind of get a sense of, is it something that they would be interested in, or if it's something that we should ask directly at the council meeting, or if you can just kind of get a gauge and then report that to us next month. We can kind of address it from there. And what we'll also do next month as well is look at the categories. Maybe we want to adjust the categories, being that, there are new challenges and things like that have been highlighted. Any other things before we move forward, guys? Student of the month? I do want to respect our time as well. Okay, so we're going to go on to our next agenda item, and I believe this is the final one, the principal's brunch. I think we could still do it. I mean, I don't want to be overly ambitious, but I think we provide value to the principals by connecting them with the city, connecting them with each other. I know we have the option for Zoom breakout rooms and things like that, but I think we all kind of get the sense that a lot of the administrators appreciate the opportunity to come and be face-to-face, or at least, meet other people who are either in similar situations or can provide them with some kind of assets. So be it whether it's Zoom or not, I think it's something that we can still do. Does anyone have any reservations against that? Thinking that it may not serve value or that it's biting off too much during this time?
I'm okay with going forward with the idea that it's probably November. I'm not picking the date this time because there are fires and there are floods and there are things. I say we just say, yes, we're going to keep it on the horizon. And then when we get closer, we'll just let somebody pull a date out of the hat.
Well, last year it was in January, right? Because it was during the strike, or what was it? I think it was January.
It was like November because it was the fire.
Yeah, it was around November.
The year before that, it was January, and
our first one was in January.
Right. And then a year later, we were going to do it in January again. And then we were very nicely told that because the strike was coming and we pushed it off, and then it was too hard to do it again because there was so much with the strike, and we understood that. And then we tried to do it. And if it wasn't November, it was October, but it was when the giant fire was in Sylmar. So
the only opposition I have to Zoom, I think we do bring value, but I think a lot of the value comes from
face-to-face.
Yeah, and it comes from the small talk and getting to meet people that you maybe have heard their name before, but you haven't had an opportunity to really have some small talk and get to know them. And I kind of think that some of our administrators are suffering some Zoom fatigue. Mm-hmm. I know they have to be on even more meetings like this than I as an educator do. And I felt like towards the end there, oh my gosh, some of those, we had to do so many final IEPs and they all moved to Zoom and it was a lot. So I just don't know that we'd get quite the turnout. So I'm wondering if maybe we could look at January or I was gonna say maybe even doing it outside, social distancing style, but I feel like it's so hard to pick a date. I do think we bring value. I think it's worth doing. I just don't know if I'd participate if it was on Zoom.
I mean, I think our first one went off without a hitch. Our second one, we had our teacher strike. Our third one, we had a fire. Our fourth one during a global pandemic, like it just kind of adds to that. But I think, if we approach it more webinar style, like, hey, the information's here, we're still providing them with the info. I know I'll feel better about it, right? That like part of, I think, what we're designed to do is connect our educators with city resources. And if we're still putting the legwork in on the back end, if they choose to jump in or jump out, that's kind of on them. But I think, I don't know, I personally would feel better knowing that we're providing that support. Yeah, so that's my feeling on it. So I'm willing to put in some work just for those who want it, even if some are just tired of Zoom and don't want to join it. Some webinars are like that, right? I mean, there's webinars out there for so many different topics that choose to join or not. Cool, Olivia, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I ever brought this idea up was to meet the administrators. The information from the city is valuable, but it was more for me meeting the other administrators, talking to them at the tables, those kinds of things. And that's what happened more or less on, and that's why we sat them the way we sat them with different levels at different places so that they wouldn't all congregate with their own peers that they already know. So that was the purpose, I thought, was to get administrators to meet other administrators face to face. And that, I recall last time when we had the principals brunch, we had less than half of them present. So I think if we're going to do something like this, it needs to be in a time when they've been settled. So I go for January rather than the fall. And I think that the information we give them from the city can come to them in January as well as it can in the fall. But in the fall, they are going to be making big adjustments, putting out their own challenges at their schools and the district. I think it's just something they don't need at that point. I really feel that we should give them room to make their adjustments and feel comfortable. And again, I agree with Commissioner Moore. The purpose is for them to meet each other, I think, as a past principal.
Got it. Okay. I think we can continue to Commissioner Llamas, any comments on it or?
David, I didn't hear that statement that you just made.
Oh no, I'm just curious to know if you had any comments or any thoughts before we close out this item.
Okay, I agree with the thoughts of Commissioner Moore and Commissioner Robledo. Given the purpose of it, the face-to-face contact, we might want to wait until the beginning of the year to hold it in the springtime. Maybe by then the pandemic will decrease somewhat, because you want to make sure that whatever event you plan, you would have some positive results. And yes, we might not get everybody there, but and everything might be different. However, the whole thing of it is that personal communication that you've wanted to inspire for this event. So I would kind of lean to waiting or holding off to say, okay, can we hold it in the spring? Would it be more beneficial?
Yeah, it's to me, I appreciate that reasoning of let's kind of wait and see how things are. I mean, there's so many
outside in the spring.
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah. So you consider if it does happen, maybe why not do it second semester?
I also think that we can call on Mr. Solorzano in helping us to encourage the principals to attend. Making him part of the program or helping. He can help when he talks to them individually. Are you going to this event? This kind of thing. He can kind of help us with that. So I think working with him would be an asset to our outcome.
Yeah.
Great insight. Awesome. Any further comments before we close this out? Great. Awesome meeting, guys. We have a few more things we want to do. General commissioner comments. Anyone want to dates, things happening?
Okay, is this where I can pop in?
Let's do it.
I just wanted to make comment on the graduate banners. It made such a difference to the families that were able to participate in that. Even we were able to purchase one for our grandson, and it was just incredible the way the family all jumped into the Tahoe, and we surprised our graduate with the banner, and they were able to look at all the other kids from all the different schools. And it was like creating a community within the community and creating successes, especially during this time when people are stressed and in negative modes. So it was a really good activity or that the Department of Recs had created. And I can see why they did that. Based on the veterans program that they did, but for them to be able to do it for our graduates, that was a wonderful thing. Whoever created that idea, I would like to acknowledge them. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we can participate in that process, or if they need us, or if they need our help, or would like to go and to continue or further that whole project. But they took care of it pretty well. They did a really good job. So I just needed to share that.
Thank you, Commissioner Yamas. Any other commissioner updates?
I just want to comment. I know at the beginning you said that our initial agenda had the reorganization of our commission on it. I just want to comment that I think it's perfectly fine if we reorganize nothing. So if that's allowed to wait, that's fine with me. Although I occasionally feel guilty because I kind of feel that Chair Govea, you do everything and you're amazing. Totally chill with me if we wait. Just want to put that out there.
Thank you for the confidence. Appreciate it. Any other commissioner comments?
Yay, I say yay to Commissioner Moore's comment. I feel exactly the same. I don't think we have any term limits and that I know of, or do we have bylaws that say that we have to reorganize, or can we just stay?
I believe it needs to be agendized.
Okay.
That's what our bylaws say. So we definitely have to throw it in. And thank you guys for that. My comment ties into this. So I have some very good news for those that don't know. I currently have some major life changes happening on August 10th. My daughter, Sedona Govea, is expected to be born. So I'm not sure if everyone knew that, but I have a toddler at home already, a 1-year-old, and gonna have an infant. So a lot going on. So we're very excited about that. But we still should be here next meeting, being that it's before August 10th. But we have a lot of parents in here, so you guys know a lot of things kind of work in very interesting ways. So, but I just want to throw that out there because we just announced the name last Sunday. So Sedona Govea, see cute photos and stuff on social media. Maybe I'll jump in on the meeting at some point. But yeah, we're very excited about that. So that's my comment. Cool.
Commissioner Govea, I didn't get all the comment because you were in and out. Can you please just repeat it a little bit, please?
Sure. I'm having a daughter. She's due August 10th. Her name is Sedona.
Oh, it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
I
coming
got
up
it
soon.
now. I got it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Any other commissioner comments? Awesome, guys. So if we can get a motion to close the meeting. Actually, we're so sorry. Staff communication. I want to cut you off, Cynthia.
No, nothing at all, really. Congratulations on your baby. We're all very excited for you. I will be bringing back, I will make sure to have the reorg on there. I mean, even if it stays the same or if new appointments are made, it will be on the agenda. And I will also, since there's a lot of talks about, you know, the going into the new school year, I am going to be bringing back the ad hoc list. I think it'll be a great time to discuss where you're all at and then how you can go into the new year. But that is all.
Great. Thank you. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will move to adjourn.
Second it.
All right. All in favor? Oh, sorry.
Roll call. So I have Commissioner Olivia Robledo,
Yes.
Commissioner Nicole Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Suzanne N. Llamas,
Yes.
Vice Chair Angel Zoval Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Chair David Govea.
All right, yes. Great, everyone. So meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting, as you guys know, normal time, normal date, it should be July 28th,
28th.
Tuesday.
Awesome.
So guys, I'll see you all there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.